how does your job as CEO differ from your predecessors, and what's driving that change?
Well, as you may know, we provide systems that enable companies to use data to improve the way that people live, work, and play. You know, how does anyone in a CEO position today deal with the politics that exist today, especially with the increasing amount of focus on high tech and the way that tech is changing the landscape of business and of the communities in which we operate. And I think we just need to be much more aware of how our technology actually affects society. And I think that when there is criticism of tech, it's either because they have not been careful about how they affect society, or that they've not been thoughtful as they go forward as to how they might modify their behavior in order to affect society in a better way, in a more positive way than in the past.
What do you view as your company's responsibility to society?
I believe that companies need to be very good community citizens, right? In the communities in which we operate, our headquarters in Mountain View, but of course we have offices in many cities around the world. And each of those offices need to play a part in the civic life of those communities. And we really encourage our employees individually to play a role, but also as a company we try to contribute a great deal to the local community in a variety of ways.
What do you do when there's a trade-off between social responsibility and profits, or if there's a conflict there? I guess, how is that handled?
There's not a conflict between profits and engaging in marketing. For instance, it's part of what makes the business successful. It's part of what makes us competitive. Paying our employees the proper wage. One diminishes from the other, but we need to have the best employees in the world. And we need to have good relationships with our local community. And as an example of that, we recently contributed to the Peninsula Housing Trust that is helping to create housing for middle income, lower middle income people. You know, when we have employees come to the area, this is a very expensive area to live. And for our new employees, people coming in just from college and so forth, it's very difficult for them to get started. And so helping our community to develop more, mid-cost housing is going to be very important, both for our community, for our employees, and for the communities in which we operate.
Granted, some of these things come with costs, and
Right.
those costs do affect the bottom line. Is there ever any kind of issue where you sort of have to deal with the balancing act of those?
Well, I think the way we go about it is, of course, trying to optimize every dollar that we spend, right? So it's not so much about the volume, albeit that we can't spend half of our income on it, but it's about identifying where are we going to make the biggest difference. And if we're going to invest a dollar, let's make sure we can get the most out of that. And hopefully invest in such a way that there's a greater return, so so that we can actually invest a bit more.
Is moral leadership an important component of your job, and how do you exercise that?
Ethical leadership is a very important part of the job. Companies are led from the top, and you have self-selection in the people that come to the company and that leave the company. And what you really want is to be able to develop a company with very strong ethics throughout the entire organization. And if you don't display that from the top, you're not going to attract the right kind of people, and you may lose the wrong kind of people.
How do you deal with political issues? Do you address them in your company? And when I talk about political issues, there's the bathroom laws, the NRA, separation at the border. Are these things you choose to address at your company?
Well, there are issues that are purely political, which we choose not to address. In the last election, we encouraged employees to go out to vote. We didn't tell them how to vote or whether we had any preference whatsoever in voting, but we let them know, because elections, unfortunately in our country are on Tuesdays. We let them know that they should take the time away from work to make sure that they voted. We also, so for example, with respect to the bathroom laws, again, we are going to respect the views of both the community and of our employee base. And so there was demand for gender-neutral bathrooms, and we went forward and created them inside. We didn't tell people how to vote or how to care about that outside of our workplace, but inside the workplace, we address issues that our employees care about.
So there's no speaking out openly about specific political topics or anything?
Generally not unless it would affect us as a company. So for example, we are quite vocal on the issue of visas. Restricting H-1B visas does make it more difficult for us to employ really strong people that happen to come from other countries. So there we do take a stand. On patent reform we take a stand. But in areas that are purely political outside of the workplace environment, we allow our employees to believe and pursue the political aims that they think best.
Do you believe capitalism is in crisis?
I think capitalism every now and then faces some challenges that it needs to address. It did during the Depression. We bolstered sort of wild capitalism with some state-sponsored safety net programs that really, in essence, bolstered capitalism. If we look back on the last 200 years of capitalism, it has raised people's standard of living by orders of magnitude. People today, even lower middle class people, live better than kings and dukes did 200 years ago. And I believe that it will continue raising the overall standard of living for people as we go forward. Perhaps the separation between rich and poor becomes too great. Perhaps the underpinning programs, the safety net programs, are not strong enough. And other elements of capitalism need to be reined in, and I'm sure we will get through this period as well.